Well, financial planning is simply a process to devise strategies for us to reach our financial goals. To elaborate a little bit about financial planning, first, it actually comprises of three different steps that we have to take into account. One is obviously, the first step is obviously to determine what our financial goals are or financial objectives are. As a guide, generally in financial planning, these financial goals or financial objectives should be somewhat of a bigger ticket item. For instance, it could be like buying a home, buying your first house, or even changing or upgrading the property that you live in, your home, educating your child, planning your own retirement. These are all larger financial goals that we can set for ourselves. So having set the financial goals, then the next step is really to determine where we are financially, how much resources we have, and what kind of income are we earning, or where do we derive the financial resources to help us meet our financial goals. And the third thing obviously would be coming up with strategies of how are we going to reach those financial goals from where we are. Let's say you want to buy a house, and the house is going to cost you 500,000-600,000 ringgit, and you figured, okay, how much down payment you are going to need. Maybe you're going to need 120 or 20% or 30% of it, depending on how you want to plan for it. And let's say you need 150,000 ringgit. So how much do you need currently? That's how much you need. All right. When do you intend to buy the house? Say in a year's time, in 2 years' time. The time frame must be set. All right. Then you need to figure out how much do you currently have. If let's say you have 50,000, you need to raise another 100,000. So how are we going to do that? So that's where the third part comes. So one is you know that you need 150,000 in a year or 2 years' time. You have 50,000 today. You need to raise 100,000 from now until the 2 years time frame that you've given yourself. But how are you going to do that? So essentially, coming up with the strategies of determining how you're going to go about raising that 100,000 would be the strategies that you put in place. All right. So that's basically, in a nutshell, it will be financial planning for us. To also elaborate a little bit further, for simplicity's sake, we can just break financial planning into three categories. The first is, of course, wealth creation. Wealth creation will invariably involve budgeting and saving, putting aside money, and investing those money to ensure that we are able to use those resources, grow those resources, and use those resources to meet our financial goals. Second one, just as important, the second pillar is wealth protection. So obviously the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to protection will be insurance. So insurance is one of the instruments we can use to protect our wealth. When we talk about protecting our wealth, it's not only protecting the wealth we already have, but it's also protecting the potential wealth that we can generate given time. And the last, obviously, is distributing it. When the time comes for us to leave this world, we will have to have strategies to determine our financial plans to cater towards giving away our wealth to the people whom we intend to give our wealth to. That's one. Then secondly, of course, wealth distribution also is about preservation, wealth preservation, preserving the wealth so that we take care of our next of kin or our beloved beneficiaries in the proper way, so that some of them may not be able to handle wealth. So you have to put plans probably to also help those your next of kin to be able to enjoy the wealth for as long as you intend them to do so. So that, in a nutshell, will be what financial planning is all about. Okay, I suppose in life, planning in any activity that we do, I suppose planning is important. Not only financials, but anything at all. To stress the importance of financial planning is that cliche which says that if you fail to plan, then actually we are all planning to fail. All right. So although it sounds a bit corny or cliche, but actually if you delve into that simple statement, it is very true. Essentially, when we look at it, lots of people may have a plan. Uh, Actually, it's kind of a want. You want to be able to buy a home, to buy a fancy car of your dreams, to plan for a good retirement, a super lifestyle kind of living. So those are goals that we have. But to tell you the truth, doing setting up goals is also an exercise of its own. It's not easy. Lots of people just go through life without knowing actually what they want. So one of the key important things that we need to do is to be able to focus on what in life do we set out to achieve. That means goal setting part of it. If we fail to set goals, we probably end up drifting aimlessly and not sure what exactly we are supposed to attain, and therefore we just take one day at a time, or as another cliche says, cross the bridge when we come to it. So that's basically quite a dangerous thing to do. Well, to put it quite fairly, it's not only Malaysians who suffer that kind of problems. I think this problem about not planning properly for our finances applies to practically most people around the world. Okay, of course, in some countries, you find that some people are more literate when it comes to financial planning. It all depends on the financial literacy. It's not just about knowledge about all kinds of subjects, but financial literacy is something that is actually quite lacking in a lot of countries. When we talk about financial literacy, we also talk about functional literacy. Okay, it's not just knowing, but it's also application of that knowledge. All right, so functional literacy is also very important. You talk about financial planning. Don't you think that most of us would know that it's important to save money, to invest our money, and to ensure that we will have enough money for our retirement? But actually, surprisingly, if you check with the men in the street, most of us are actually getting on in life without knowing what to expect. Even in a short span of time, maybe even in the following 1 or 2 years, let alone planning for 15 years time, what's going to happen in 15 years time, 20 years time, or 30 years time when we're going to retire. So this is a problem that is faced by Malaysians as well as lots of people around the world as well. So I believe that in order to help to alleviate or to minimize the kind of problems that we have, one of the major things that I believe Malaysians need to do is to start educating or enhancing the financial literacy of people by teaching young children right from the school. Include financial planning as a subject so that young people will begin to learn about financial planning, begin to learn about financial literacy, to learn about the importance of saving, the miracle of compounding, things like that. Simple concepts that we sometimes take for granted, but it's very important for lots of the common people because they don't understand, because by lack of understanding of this very critical area, one can end up coming to the bridge and not being able to cross it. Okay. I suppose one of the key things about financial planning or setting up a financial plan for ourselves, one of the first things that we need to do is to agree or to tell ourselves that we need to do financial plan for ourselves. We need to create a financial plan for ourselves. I think that's one of the first things that we need to do. So one of the things, having decided and having agreed that we are going to have a financial plan for ourselves, it means that we need to firstly set a goal for ourselves. Okay, when we talk about goal, normally when we talk about financial plan at all, any plan for that matter, is no use to have a plan in the mind, and yeah, that's it. This is what I want to do, and in my mind, this is what I need to do. This is where I want to go. This is how much I have. This is how much I need to save, put aside. This is where I should invest my money. What kind of returns I should have. What the inflation rate should I cater for. Things like that. All right. It's no use just to have it in our mind or having a mental snapshot of it. It's very, very important for all kinds of planning is to commit that into writing, put it down on paper, or of course nowadays we all like to do things using computers or using our smartphones. You can have a notepad on your phone and write all this down into it. It's very important to commit into writing, whether in the soft version or a hard version. Do it. That's number one. Then number two, having decided on that, then we have to break it down to milestones, okay? So that you know, by setting the milestones, you know you are on your way or whether you are off, things like that. Whether you are still on track towards reaching your financial goals. So that's the second thing. So having it in writing, that's the first step. Second thing is to break it down, your strategies, into easier to monitor milestones. All right, that's the second thing that you need to do. Then the third thing is, of course, actually doing it. And if you say you're going to save money, then you got to do it. All right. So those are some of the steps that you can do. But that's we say is DIY, do it yourself. But essentially, lots of people, we may know theoretically what we need to do, where we want to go, and what we need to do to get there, and the strategies that we have in place and all that. We may have all that, okay, but lots of us, some of us will probably not be able to see our financial plans to fruition. One of the things that we know most people suffer from would be the lack of discipline, financial discipline, okay? Actually doing what we say that we're going to do, okay? So that's number one. Number two, of course, sometimes we are not able to foresee what are the risks that can come about. So that's something else that, to put in summary, it will be having to have someone to guide us, okay? So more often than not, for most people, we need someone to act as our guide, to act as our coach. So it is actually money well spent if you can get a good financial coach, a financial planner or financial advisor to be your confidant, your coach, to guide us along, to see, because they can tell us from a third party point of view whether our goals that we set for ourselves are realistic, or are they achievable, or is it too simple and too easily achievable, things like that. So that person, your coach, can help you, guide you towards setting the right goals that is achievable for you based on your current financial circumstances, and based on your capacity to earn, that kind of thing, you need someone to help you along. Thank you.